Hi everyone, Dr. Bob here. As always, I'm trying to understand the insanity of the world around us. And as usual, I come to the opposite conclusions as are dominant in the perspectives that are continuously promulgated by the establishment. So, what I want to talk about today is the FDA, the Food and Drug Administration, and the absolute stupidity of their approach, which is the foundation of our biomedical industry, the gold standard of triple blind studies, and why they're so important and the only way to think about things. Well, as usual, I come to the conclusion that the standard way of thinking is just a load of horse shit. So let's look at what's going on here. Drug companies typically spend, up to $500 million to get their drug on the market. And it includes safety studies and efficacy studies and, phase one, phase two, blah, 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 triple blind, double blind. Anyway, what are they really saying? They're saying that somehow they can take their chemical, which is often a xenobiotic, something that was created outside of life and therefore doesn't plug into the biochemical flow of life. So, right off the bat, you got to expect that there's going to be all sorts of consequences when you're using those kinds of chemicals. Because you test for one thing, but you have no idea what else is going to happen, and you certainly have no idea of long term effects. And in many respects, again, it's simply like throwing a pebble into a stream. The stream goes around it eventually. So that's what we're dealing with as a kind of a fundamentally flawed principle that we can add these magic chemicals and have desired outcomes other than potentially some kind of usually symptomatic suppression. So, what we need to do is look at how do you establish health and how do you establish correct flow patterns, and those are not at all involved in the biomedical industry. Nutrition is taught to doctors for maybe an hour. Duh, you are what you eat. So, what we've got to look at now further is how can well, what's really going on with these triple-blinded studies, double-blinded studies. I don't know why I keep saying triple because I was just reading an article about triple-negative breast cancers. What they are doing is, as usual, trying to stick a square peg in a round hole. Don't work. What we see is that somehow, when you take these toxic chemicals and you do your safety studies, that now they're safe just because they haven't killed you in a particular period of time. What we have to be able to do is to really ignore this entire process as far as I'm concerned, because we should not be using these toxic chemicals at all. We should be trying to reestablish health, which is what cannabis does and which is what alternative health practitioners do. The idea is a healthy body is a healthy body and doesn't get sick. And a healthy body can help restore health when there is imbalances that are occurring that either lead to or have become different illnesses. The idea that you can take this magic pill, whether you're white, black, red, yellow, male, woman, old, young, and you take the magic pill 3 times a day at the time they tell you, and it's going to magically fix you. This is just utter insanity. Just as stupid as you can get. And yet that's the basis of what they do. Now let's look at how this relates to some of the cannabis stories. Here we've got thousands of people all around the world in their normal living conditions taking cannabis as they have found to be beneficial for them. Because remember, no two people are the same. No two people, even identical twins, will have the same hallucinations because your biochemistry is flowing differently. It's flowing within the guidelines of your genetics, within the guidelines of the food you eat and the environment that you live in and your personal history. There's no way that two people are the same. Now, we have classes of people who are going to respond in a similar fashion, but none of that is really examined. So once again, take the magic pill and you're going to get better. And instead, what do we see? Ongoing sickness, ongoing horrible situations, in particular with cancer. I mean, at this point, as far as I'm concerned, the chemotherapy radiation industry is criminal. As from what I'm seeing, people are curing themselves with a much greater efficiency using cannabis in their home than going for chemo. They're worried about the psychological effects. Well, what the hell do you think the psychological effect is of poisoning yourself to near death with the hope that you're going to survive and the cancer is going to die? You think that doesn't have a psychological effect? And what is the psychological effect of cannabis? It makes you feel better, holistically and specifically in terms of neurotransmitter function. It makes you in general feel better because it's part of the essence of life. Remember, it evolved with the vertebrates because of its ability to promote adaptation. That's what health is, the ongoing adaptation to your aging and your environment. And how can you continue to survive? And the best thing I know at all is to use cannabis, which is not to say we should not do other things. But that's the foundation that you work from. And then you go and you do other things. And I can envision circumstances where low doses of some of these magical chemicals might have benefit in terms of shifting the patterns that are emerging all the time. They're created constantly, every instant of time. So what you'd like to do is shift them towards health and away from illness. And again, one of the most critical factors is to minimize your free radical production by minimizing your carbohydrate intake, specifically of raw, simple sugars, like what you find in soda, an ounce of sugar. It's crazy. So, use your head, learn more, regulate your diet, ketogenic diets, promote fat burning. Things along those lines are what you need. If you're overweight, it's because your body is telling you, please stop giving me carbohydrates. You're making those fat to protect you from the free radicals generated by burning sugar. If you make it into fat, you don't burn the sugar. Unfortunately, you don't want the fat in your arteries, and you don't want the free radicals in your brain, and you don't want the free radicals generating your cancer, on and on and on. So anyway, FDA nonsense, as far as I'm concerned. Remember, I've gone through a lot of healing. I've had heart failure, I'm HLA-B27, I've got arthritis all over my body, degenerative disc disease, herniated discs, etc., etc. I feel fine most of the time, even though I have all this crap, because what I'm doing is trying to build myself back to health using the knowledge that I try to share with people, and I'm feeling pretty good. I hope you are too. Bye.